I see Tony, Harold, and Barb. All right. Well, good morning, everyone at REMAX. I'm so excited to have you this morning. So this is our next installment of the REMAX Business Builders series. It is start time. It's 9 a.m. Central Time, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. My name is Michelle Hoyt. I am Manager of Education and Development at REMAX INTEGRA. We are an independent region of REMAX, which encompasses the Ontario Atlantic region, the Midwest and New England regions, and all of Europe. We also have, I want to special welcome to all of you from the company-owned regions in the US. I know a lot of you tune in with us every week. So those of you from California, Texas, and Florida, thanks for being with us. We're all one big happy family here at REMAX. So a couple of quick things. Those of you that are watching on Zoom, there is a chat box and there's a Q&A box. I know that our panel wants to hear from you. They have a lot to share, but I highly encourage participation. Chat with each other, but ask questions to the panelists. They're here to help. And that's what's so great about REMAX is how open and sharing our network is. So those of you that are on Facebook, I'm going to keep an eye on those questions and chats and comments as well. And we will definitely pay attention and try to answer as many of your questions as we can. So we are going to go for an hour, and I know our panelists have so much to share with all of you. So today is all about productivity. Productivity, not procrastination. And I know all of you struggle with this on a daily basis. The three of us were just chatting right before this on what our struggles are on a daily basis, because it's never ending. And in your business, there's always those curveballs. There's always the unpredictability that keeps you from being productive. So without further ado, by the way, everyone, I'm excited. It's the Steve show today. I've never had this. It's unprecedented where I've had a panel with two people with the same first name. So it would be even, I'm sure there's another Steve Flemming and another Steve Miller out there. That would have been really interesting. So I'm going to probably reference them. I will be referencing them both and calling on them by their last name. So I'm not being disrespectful. It's going to be the best way to kind of keep this flowing. But so anyway, thanks again, everyone, for joining us. I'm going to have our panelists introduce themselves. So we're going to start with Flemming. So Flemming, if you could please tell us all about you, how you got started in real estate, your history with REMAX, and anything else you want us to know about you as a human being or your market.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, Michelle. Steve Flemming. I am in the Greater Toronto area in Ontario, Canada, Mount Albert to be specific, in the region of York, which is roughly about 45 minutes down to the core of Toronto. Been with REMAX, well, prior to that, I came from a long background of sales in the automotive business, worked for General Motors for quite some time, and then just decided that let's try something different. Always been interested in being commission-based and having no ceiling and kind of being a bit more of an entrepreneur. So roughly 13 years ago, I believe I am in my 13th year now, just coming up on it, I interviewed a whole bunch of different real estate companies and really liked the feel that I got with the REMAX brokerage that I spoke with at the time. Was different, as you mentioned earlier, just the mindset of sharing and kind of the learning. They weren't really interested in just another body. They were looking at someone that was planning a future in this business, which we really kind of tuned in together with. I was with them for the first 12 years and that brokerage closed, and it came down to a question as to what do I do? I needed to make a move, and I teamed up and spoke with REMAX INTEGRA, and we decided that this was the best place to stay, and affiliated with REMAX Prime, which has been a great move. Been here now coming up on almost 12 months and loving every minute of it. So that's
awesome.
my
Thank
background.
you. Tell us a little bit about your market.
Marketplace is currently right now moving very quickly. Inventory is quite low. Our average sale price in my area this year has been floating around that $750,000 range. Everything is going into multiple offers, whether or not it's marketed that way or it's just naturally happening. We've got a lot of buyers that are hitting the ground. Try to explain that, why it's happening during a pandemic, I'm still having issues with, but it is what it is. Inventory is just so low. Interest rates, I do think, are really helping the market with record lows at that as well.
Thank you so much for sharing. Okay, Miller, you're up. Tell us all about you. Tell us about your background and how you came to be at RE/MAX, your market, and anything else you want everyone to know about you.
Sure. Okay. So I've been selling for 31 years. It was licensed at a young age, so I don't remember what I did before that. You know, some odd jobs leading into this, but I always enjoyed the real estate. And similar to Flemming, you know, I wanted the possibility of the unlimited inventory to sell at my disposal. So I joined a smaller company for the first 7 years, and then for 2 years sold new construction, which was a good experience. Sitting on the other side of desk from realtors and experiencing the new home sales part of it. And then in 1997 joined RE/MAX Results. Since that time, it's gone through 2 ownerships, but a shout out to our current owners. Great systems in place. Todd Stock and Larry Phillips did a great job. So enjoyed their association and the ability to access training and the resources they have available for us. But our current market is a lot smaller. We're small to mid market. Our average sale price is, I think, 184, 185, somewhere in that range. Low inventory, just like they're experiencing in Canada. Many homes are multiple offers. Short market time. So usually in Elkhart County, we average 900 to 1,100 homes available. We've been in that 200 to 350 range for the last, 3 years. The builders can no longer compete with our existing home prices like they did back in 06 or 07. So they're not able to fill that void. So I think we'll experience this strong market for probably another, 3-4 years at least as we move ahead. So that's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
Well, just so everyone, thank you. So everyone understands there's a vast difference, obviously, in average price in each of their markets, but that's by design because all of you are coming from some place where you can either relate to one or the other. So that's what we're trying to accomplish here, and for sure. So you both touched on a little bit about why you got to RE/MAX and how you got to RE/MAX and a couple of reasons behind that. But let's dive a little deeper on RE/MAX, the brand, and what it means to you. So Flemming, we'll start with you. You did talk a little bit about some of the reasons why you joined, but can you share a little bit more insight on what you enjoy on a day-to-day basis at RE/MAX, but then also if a competitor were to ask you, hey, what do you love about RE/MAX, what would be your typical response?
One of the big driving factors, and I'm very brand loyal. I always have been with everything. I mentioned General Motors earlier, but my prime connection with them was Cadillac. And it's the same when I spoke with other brokerages and when I started thinking about going into this career, where I was going to land. RE/MAX was always at the top. It's one name that you do know. When I mentioned it to family members and friends that this is what I was doing and where I was going, they said, oh, that's great, you're going into real estate. I knew that if I had to mention some of the other brokerage names, they kind of question, oh, where are you doing commercial real estate? What are you doing? And it was just more leading into explaining what I was doing for a living, where RE/MAX kind of explains itself, which is quite nice. And I think really gets your foot in the door. I do a lot of marketing in my small area. I drive a truck that's got wrapped and it's got RE/MAX on it. And it's one of those things where people call me and they already know. They don't have to, kind of dive in. Is this what you do for a living? And is it your focus? I think it just kind of speaks volumes and does that for itself. In terms of the RE/MAX family, events and this sharing. Again, I have a lot of colleagues that are at other brokerages that they don't speak at all with regards to, doing broadcasts like this or going to events that everybody shares with. And through this pandemic, I've been fortunate to get involved in quite a few groups online of colleagues that are happy to share and talk about what are we doing and how are we getting through all of this. Again, I've got colleagues that are out in the dark. They're sitting by themselves trying to figure it out, and they're not having this communication that I find that we share throughout the family of RE/MAX.
Absolutely. And that's why we're here today, and we really appreciate it. Miller, how about you? Tell us about how deep your love for Remax goes.
Sure. Well, back when I joined Remax, it was, frankly, it was due to the people that were at the company at that time, the professional people that were there as brokers, and the clients they had, how they presented themselves, and the pay structure, that appealed to me at that time. Over the years, it's certainly involved into really appreciating the resources, as Flemming noted, the training, the access to the web platform, the materials we can purchase, and of course conferring with others. But outside of that, it's still the respect of the Remax name. People come into town, they know that Remax can be trusted, and the depth of that. So I really appreciated that over time. And it's evolved over the years, but it's been a great thing and still continues to be, in my opinion.
So part of being productive is you don't have to spend the first 30 minutes of your listing presentation explaining who Remax is, right?
100%.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure. So, all right. So we'll start with you again, Miller. In your opinion, do you think are some of the biggest obstacles that keep real estate agents from being productive? Whether you've experienced it yourself or you've witnessed it, share some of your insight into that.
Sure. I think it can be poor habits, certainly. We set goals every year, as most agents hopefully do, but I think it's the attention to habits, the daily habits, that get us to that successful goal. So bad habits, whether that be distractions, lack of focus, and I believe in technology, use it to greatest extent, but I've also watched agents pay so much attention to technology they forgot the personable side of it and working with people directly. So I think there's that balance of, even in technology, not losing focus of what we're about. And I realize some of that may vary in every market, but being in a small to mid-sized market, the personal connection is very important. So bad habits, lack of focus, not setting goals, lacking the ability to delegate or recognize what is income producing versus just time spent, not bearing any fruit. So those are some of the things I would see happening.
Okay, thank you. Flemming, how about you? What do you see as some of the biggest interferences and obstacles in being productive?
I would have to agree with everything that Steve had to say, and just touch base on the lack of structure. It is one of those careers that you get into, and you can just kind of float around and do whatever you like, but you only get out of this business what you put into it. And you have to really structure yourself and focus on, as Miller was saying, what's income producing. I have kind of watched over the last couple of years as Facebook and videos and everything has taken off, agents that really focus and do a great job on marketing videos and do all these things, but that's all you see them doing. And then all of a sudden a year goes by and then you don't see them anymore because they realize, well, wait a second, I didn't sell any houses. I spent all my time focused on what we thought was, and it very well is, the next thing, and it needs to be part of your business, but you need to structure it and schedule and put time in to that, but also put time into the income producing parts and not forget about that. And that's what the difficult part is being in control of yourself and setting yourself guidelines and deadlines as to what should I be doing at this time of the day, and what should I be doing at another time of the day.
For sure. Now, I didn't send you this question ahead of time, but I just want to chat a little bit about how so many have been working from home during this pandemic. And I've heard all kinds of stories. Some of you say you're even more productive than ever and you love it and you're never going to go back to the office. I've heard the exact opposite, especially those of you that have children running around and dogs and all kinds of distractions. So can you share a little bit about what you've been through in the pandemic, where you worked, and how that affected your productivity level? Steve Flemming, we'll start with you on that one.
Well, I'm fortunate that I do have an office to go to, and I do joke about it. It's one of those, again, I'm a very routine and scheduled person, and it's quite ironic that I was invited to this procrastination because I'm very good at that as well. But I find if I stay at home, I don't get as much done. And I've always been that way. So I've always gone to an office. And the first office that I had was just in the town over called Sharon, which was roughly a 10-minute drive. And I always joke with my peers that, you know what, the commute was killing me. So I bought an office that is literally around the corner from my house. So I get up every morning, I drive less than a kilometer, and I'm at my office. So it's nice. And during this pandemic, it was nice that I had that space still. I've got 2 young boys and a dog at home, and it's very difficult to get anything done there. So my wife and I set up a nice schedule where she had to go into the office, and she would come to my office and work for the morning, and I would look after our family, and then we would switch at noon, and I would work the rest of the day. So it was set up again, scheduled out so that we had a place that was quiet and productive. I don't find my home office to be that way. I know it's different for everyone else depending on how you have that structure. I need that personally, is that space to get away from all of it so that I'm not finding an excuse to cut the grass or clean the pool or do something else.
And just curious, are you a morning or a night person?
I have a love-hate relationship with the morning. I absolutely love it because I get so much done, but I hate getting up. So that being said is no, I work late into the evening.
Okay, there's no right or wrong, just curious about that.
Yeah.
Steve Miller, talk to us about your experiences working at home or not working at home this year, and as well as let us know if you're a morning or night person.
I love mornings, so I can get a lot more done in the mornings before the phones really begin to ring. But by the nature of the job, we also work late. So I enjoyed working from home, but I think there's something to be said about missing the synergy of being around other agents and sharing ideas and the things that take place in the hallways as you chat about different things going on or new listings coming up. So that we missed during the time that we were separated and working from home. We do have a home office that's great. I feel it's important to have a space that you can truly relax and forget about work. So I try to minimize that to some degree and leave work at the office, if that makes sense as well. But when my children were younger, certainly I couldn't get much done at home. So then it was definitely office was the direct focus. So no kids at home at this point. So.
Oh, for sure. Well, so let's talk a little bit about the evolution of your productivity in your careers each respectively. So let's talk about the first year you got in real estate. If you could kind of take us all back to how you managed your time, how you managed your tasks, if you even knew where to start, anything that you want to share. And then, if you want to talk about, then we're going to talk more about what you do today, because I'm sure there's been some lessons learned along the way, right? All right, so Steve Miller, we'll start with you on this one.
Sure. Well, as I told you before, Michelle, I think the first year I should have bought Apple stock, so that would have been the way to go. But since I didn't, I'm here. So things were different, obviously, at that time. But I had a great broker that taught me how to dream, instructed me to sit down and write goals and stretch my imagination, work with larger numbers, and then talk about how to get to those points. And that's still valuable to this day. I think at that time, for the first probably 7 years, would spend a lot of time selling, and then half the time on the administrative side, bringing it to close. So keeping that pipeline consistent, full of pendings and having a solid run of closings was always difficult because you were managing both things at that time. But prospecting was done differently at that point. Even did door to door for a while, which is interesting. Not sure I would do that now, but it was a great experience. And so obviously things have changed over time where we've tried to embrace the technology as it's changed things and how we market as well. So
interesting. Okay, Steve Flemming, you came from the corporate world, so I'm really intrigued to hear more about when your first year in real estate and how you approached your to-dos and your tasks and everything else.
Yeah. So again, it was very scheduled. I would go into the office every day, and I would, again, nurture what we'd call that sphere of influence, your friends, family, past colleagues, making sure that they knew you made the change. What are you doing? Which has evolved into doing the same thing with your database today, is following up and making sure that they're aware that you're still in the business and that you're there. I've also been very community driven in terms of making sure that everybody knows what I do and being involved, whether it's committees or groups, and just having a voice. I go to town council meetings, not so much that I really care what's going on, but I want people to see me sitting in the audience, right? And it's one of those things where, yeah, it's nice to know what new developments are going on or who's got a problem with somebody not cutting their grass, but it's the people that see you that are there. They realize that you're now involved in the community, you're paying attention, and your name is out there. As I mentioned, my truck has been good for me where I live, because people see it parked in the town offices or where I might be going. So that's always been a driving factor for me, is being out in the community and being a part of it all. And it's fun at the same time. And that's a big thing, is you got to enjoy it. So.
Sounds good. So, so Steve Miller, let's talk about that a little bit too. So, let's get more into, I guess, moments you got derailed in your career. So, can you remember a specific event or moment where you just figured out you just weren't being productive, or you were spending the wrong time on the wrong things, or just basically things got off track for you? And also, what steps did you take, and what particular things were you procrastinating at the time?
Sure. Good questions. You know, so over the years, at the end of the year, I would spend some time evaluating how the year went, what I missed, and how I could improve, and what changes should be made, which I think is always been a great habit, to reflect on that and stay current with what can be done. I've reached a point where I purchased a retired agent's book of business, and that boosted my inventory, boosted my responsibilities. And at that point, I decided, I need to make some dramatic changes and bring in some help. So that's when I brought in my first assistant and began to look at the systems a little bit closer and process a little bit closer, mostly out of necessity. And really, it was a good thing. It forced me to take a hard look at that quickly and make some good changes. So otherwise, we've been consistent in growth. We've had some down years, obviously. 2009, 10, 11 were interesting years for a lot of people in the business. But even then, we spent time looking at what the current market supports and how we can make it through those times. So in terms of being derailed, I think that would be what I would reflect. And there's some personal things that happened in my life that certainly you could say derailed me for a moment, but that's a different thing. But paying attention, taking time to reflect and plan, I think has been crucial for me. Being diligent about that and looking at, are there any weak spots in my systems, any things I can improve on for the following year, for the next year. So.
And what particular adjustments did you make this year in the way you worked? This year?
Certainly I have a great assistant, and we love to brainstorm on what we can do to improve everything. So we've created a team overview page. We use a dry erase board for our deadlines of inspections and closings that at a glance I can take a quick look at. We've changed how we communicate with some of our clients, and so some of those things we continue to fine tune. To me, it's the practical things, it's the small things, it's the organization that makes all the difference. I love to have that. So organization is one thing we really are focusing on, and how to organize that system better. I'm like everyone. I hate spending 15 minutes to look for something I know should be at a certain spot and it's not there. So very practical. She's great at organizing, so we've created a system that we continue to improve on. So
that's great to hear. So I do see a couple questions coming in. We will get to those questions in just a moment. So thank you so much. Keep them coming. So Steve Flemming, let's talk about you. I know you said you're very structured. You have systems. Were there any points in your career, even if they were just minor things, that you could just quickly fix? Any moments where you felt off track?
I'm not sure if I just froze or did you guys freeze?
Oh,
You froze.
I think you froze. So the question was again,
There you are.
a moment
I'm
or
back.
two, yeah, a moment or two in your career where maybe you felt like you got off track or got derailed. Maybe it was this year. And how did you make those adjustments?
It actually interesting you say this year. So it derailed. I don't know if I like the word derailed. Sorry, but yeah, it was probably 2015, give or take, when I just found it was too much, and it got to the point where, again, being involved in the community, and I like to think that I'm an ideas guy, and so I throw a lot of stuff out there, but it's putting that and implementing it. So, which takes the time. And that's when I decided to add an agent as well as an assistant that following year, and kind of delegate a little bit to them, and throw the ideas of we should be doing this, set it up for us. And then also helping with showings and listings and buyers was quite nice. Now that went very well for a number of years, and then it just kind of, as I mentioned, I switched brokerages at the beginning of this year. It was good timing to reevaluate everything. I hadn't grown as much as I had hoped to have grown in the course of the time frame. So that was what this year was supposed to be. It was a restructuring. Let's see, where are we, and reevaluate, and what could I do differently. And then March showed up with COVID, and it has put things a little bit on hold, where I haven't rushed it in terms of, I wanted it all set up by the summer or late spring of this year, in back in the flow, which I'm comfortable with having a good year this year. And it's definitely been different. But I don't think it was the right time for me to be rebuilding this year either. But I've also done a lot of research and structuring in terms of, I'm ready to move forward as we get out of this, and really looking forward to 2021 and having a new system in place, a new group, and seeing where do we go with it from there. So it's taken a little bit longer to rebuild, but it's something that I think that every good company and organization needs to do anyways at some point in their career, is really just step back and what should be changed. And I decided, let's revamp a lot of it.
You are correct about the term derailed. It's not a positive image when you think about that. We all picture a train, right?
That's right.
So Steve Flemming, can we dive a little deeper? Let's talk a little bit about how you're set up with administrative help. You mentioned an assistant. Is there anyone else that assists you on a day-to-day basis? And can you talk a little bit about how you went to find that assistant, criteria you look for hiring, and then also what the responsibilities are?
Yeah, so currently I do not have one. My previous one happened to be a friend that was looking for a job at the time. So we filled that place. She had a bit of an administrative background and in organization. She was good at implementing my ideas. The problem was I kind of had to structure that entire idea and give direction as to exactly what I needed done, and she was very good at that. I do find that, I think for myself, I need someone that is going to be very forward thinking, that I just kind of bounce an idea off of them, and then down the road all of a sudden it happened, right? And it's kind of on the same page. So I think that's a very good quality to look for in an assistant for myself. The organization, and taking away that non-income generating jobs with regards to paperwork, it's just gone tenfold over the last couple of years with regards to what is we're responsible for, which we have great systems in place on where to send it. Our office is completely virtual, so it is quite nice and set up in that manner, but there's still a lot of it that needs to be done, which I find is a lot of my late nights. Being procrastinating, that's probably one thing that I procrastinate the most on, is paperwork. I don't like it. So I know it's important and it needs to get done, and it always does, but it gets done at the last minute. We need to move forward with other jobs. Miller, we were talking about earlier with regards to something important always comes up. So you'll be in the middle of doing something that needs to get dropped to move on to the crisis that's at hand right now, and we'll eventually get back to where we were. And that's a good role for an assistant for myself, is having someone in place that will take care of all of that.
Thank you so much for that. Steve Miller, you are a team leader. Can you talk about the specific roles of your team members and how you went about building that team and where you found everyone?
Sure. So over time, I've had different team structures. I think from 2001 roughly to 2008, I had 2 licensed people on my team, and one did mostly the pending transactions and the office work, but we were all licensed and able to sell. Now, technology was different, things were different, but we weren't, I mean, a great team, definitely, but the technology now allows us to produce so much more with less people. So moving forward to now, I have a great assistant that used to be a title company processor and closer, so great with details, organization, certainly knew the industry and is familiar with all the realtors and lenders involved. So that's been a tremendous asset. And I think it's important to, as I've watched successful businesses and, even outside of real estate, that successful groups surround themselves with the right people. And that it's important to look at what your weak points are as an agent. And have someone that can cover that backside, cover your weak side. Excuse me, in my groups or with my assistant now, she certainly is great with organization. So it gave me that freedom that I didn't realize I was holding back perhaps a little bit in selling, because I knew there was a lot of work on the back end. Does that make sense? And so the freedom to sell, put it on her desk, and know that she will process the whole pending transaction without any hitches and make things happen. So currently her responsibilities would be, of course, pending details, some client communication, some of the MLS details, partial inputs of new listings, and certainly organization and keeping things organized throughout the whole team. So effort, but that's the current structure. She will probably get licensed toward the end of the year, through the next year. The next addition I would consider is probably a buyer agent, just to allow a little bit more free time for myself. We'll talk about that, right? I mean, free time, but so that's the current structure.
Great. So there's some questions coming in. Thanks, everyone. We're going to take a couple of those right now because they're relevant to this topic. So Donna wants to know, how did each of you decide what to pay an assistant to get started? If you're willing to share, I think they would all love to hear from you. We'll start with you, Steve Miller.
Okay. This changed over time. Certainly, I would look at the skills that they're bringing and the amount of training that it will take to get them into the team structure. So I compare to some of the other teams I've had before. I did have an assistant that wasn't familiar with real estate and had spent a lot of time in training, so the pay was considerably less, obviously, because of that. But I, with the current assistant, looked at her current income as a benchmark of what to pay. And then we also are looking at a bonus plan after I hit a certain level every year that will give her that extra boost to keep, pushing forward. So is that general enough, close enough of an answer? Without,
sure. I hear a lot of agents ask the question, are you paying hourly? Do you pay salary? I don't know what your plan is in that regard.
Good question. No, with this assistant, I pay salary.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. So it'll be different for each and every one of you. But and last week we talked about this with Drew and Stacy, but it's not necessarily going to be if you reach a certain volume level that you need an assistant. It's like what Steve said, I need some free time. I need to be a human being. And sometimes you just recognize that it's time to bring on help. So Steve, what are some of the things on a day-to-day basis that you just don't like doing or don't want to take the time to do that you have your assistant do?
Which Steve?
Oh, sorry, Steve Miller. See what I just did?
Okay.
Steve Miller.
I was waiting for Flemming to chip in.
Yeah, Miller.
No, so the things I don't like to do would certainly, I can do them obviously. We details the paperwork involved, the time it takes to make sure things are ordered correctly and structured right. I wouldn't say I dislike it. It's just I can be more productive if I can continue to sell and prospect and show and communicate with my seller and my buyers or sellers. So those are some of the things that she picks up and does quite well. And again, being able to brainstorm, we can come up with even better plans as time evolves as well. So.
Sounds good. Steve Flemming, when you had an assistant before, if you want to share maybe the compensation or at least a ballpark or something thereof, as well as what type of things that you don't like to do or don't want to take the time to do. I think you shared some of it, paperwork.
Yes, yeah, paperwork definitely. It's similar to Miller. I believe that salary worked best for myself. I always found that or had the mentality, if I'm going to pay hourly, am I getting the best bang for my buck for the hour? Are they procrastinating? Are they just, are they taking 4 hours to do an hour-long job? So I just feel more comfortable with, let's set up a decent salary. The other is hours. This is not a 9 to 5 job. I'm going to need you to do work in the evening. I'm going to need you to do work on the weekends. So that's where the salary compensation kind of came into play. And I did similar. I looked at what was she coming from and what her expectations were. And then also did a lot of research as to what do you need to pay to have someone that is going to work for you? And what does that job actually pay in the area? And then I like a bonus structure. It's similar to our commission structure let's give you that carrot and dangle it out in front of you. And if you can increase our numbers, then you're just going to make that much more money. Was my structure that I had with her. I do think that I compensated quite well. From talking with others in the industry, they thought I was crazy, but you need to pay someone good money to have good help, in my opinion. And it'll come back to you. The tasks that they were handling, during open houses, especially Asian open houses, I like to host a bit of a luncheon party, whatever it might be, and just that prep prior to. I've got bigger things to deal with than picking up sandwich trays and everything else. So very minor detail, but it helps bring people to the house. And then social media is as important as it is a time sucker, and it will just drain you forever. And that's something that I needed them to do, where I could spend time on the phones or with clients and potential buyers and sellers, where they may have seen the advertisements and everything else from social media, so that was needed, but now they get to spend time with me rather than me continuing to do that. So those were some of the big tasks. Getting into paperwork is very detail oriented, so took care of some of it, but not enough. And a lot of that falls back on myself and not training them properly in order to hand that over. One of my faults is delegating and being too hands-on. So it's things that you do learn about yourself that you need to give up, so that, again, free time is something that I was achieving, and it's something that I definitely want to achieve, is to have a better quality of life and that time. As I mentioned, I've got a young family that you need to spend more time with, and find a way to make that happen.
Now, you just mentioned something that I know everyone can relate to, especially with social media. I heard on a podcast this summer, it was the RE/MAX Adam Conto Start With a Win. He had a speaker on there, and they were talking about productivity. And the term came up, IPA versus EDA. So I think you all know what IPA is. It's income producing activities. And then EDA is energy draining activities. And when you said that about social media, that's always what comes to mind for everyone. So we are going to talk technology next, and how that plays a role into your productivity or not. And that's a very interesting point that you have. I do see some more questions coming in. So Vinod, I see you have a question about their daily and weekly planners. We're going to address that on this next one. And he says he wants to know about your to-dos and your must-dos, and he doesn't have an assistant. So let's talk about technology. What CRM do you both use? What websites, what apps do you use on a regular basis that kind of keep you on track? And then let's talk about your calendars. So anything you want to share in those areas. Steve Miller, we'll start with you.
Sure. In terms of technology, certainly love zip forms. It's been wonderful to have the ability to get digital signatures, as most of us obviously use. But in the DocuSign, we use that for the digital signature platform. But so love that it's kept us very productive. And again, doing much more than we were able to do 10 years ago. The amount of business we're able to do. I feel the downside with the digital signatures, and I'll just mention it briefly. There's some clients I have to slow down. There's a great trust level I have with them, they have with me, but need to make sure they slow down and understand what it is they are signing without blowing through it quickly. But I still love that technology. Dropbox has been wonderful for us, or some cloud storage is, I think, almost a necessity for the realtor of today, to be able to access your forms no matter where you're at. Every transaction we have, we create a folder, of course, in Dropbox and subfolders within that is quick and easy for me to pull up documents if I'm on a showing or at home or at a closing, but the quick access, that's made us very productive. We use showing time for to arrange showings, and of course for feedback that takes away from the need to call sellers with feedback as we did some time ago. Certainly that's been a great thing. The Remax app has been good for us. There's been times where we're still working through some bugs, but that's been a great app for us to use. So, and then locally we have Elevate, which allows us, as we're on site, to see lot lines and pull up tax records and check ownership, but allows us to be mobile with all that as we're out showing properties and working through that. So for scheduling, I'm still a paper person for my to-do list. I love to look at my daily to-do list and start the next day with things, and it allows me to I think it's important as we're moving about the day, is certainly evenings, if a client or some task comes to mind, write it down and let it relieve yourself of trying to remember that. But so I love the paper at this point yet for the to-do list. Scheduling, we use Google Calendar, which of course allows my assistant to be part of that scheduling process and see where I'm at and be able to pencil in things for me as well. So
fantastic. So there's one of your answers, Vinod, about weekly planners. So you go ahead and show everyone. You showed it to us the other day or yesterday. You actually have a weekly planner, right?
Actually, I think Flemming showed his.
It is okay.
Mine is over there. I can go grab it.
On the wall. Well, I think, everyone sometimes it's just nice to have that calendar in front of you, for sure. All right, Steve Flemming, let's talk about technology. What CRM do you use? Here's your calendar. Any other apps and tools that you're using that make your life easier?
Well, I'm very, very hands-on and visual person. So it's obviously I'm learning a lot with regards to acceptance of those things, with regards to technology, but I do still really put a big emphasis for myself is that visual, what is going on in the course of a week. I look at it and I can stare at it and see what's going on. It obviously moves and shifts, and at the end of the day, my weeks are all scribbled, and it's a dog's breakfast trying to understand what it is, but somehow I can do it. Writing down every note, again, I carry a notepad with me, and again, reflect on that and go through that almost on a daily basis. At the end of the day, I'll go through everything that's been written on there. You can see them behind me. Every single client has a file, which does, keep all that paper information. That also does get transported into, we use Repri through our brokerage, which is a great system similar to DocuSign, where that's where all of our documents can be created, as well as stored and shared throughout our brokerage, whoever you'd like to share it with, as well as send it for electronic signatures. I've been really fond of that program. Broker Bay is similar to Showing Time with regards to follow-up. So they take care of all of our follow-ups and getting any type of feedback after a showing. The CRM that I have been using for a number of years, I went through a few different ones, is Exact Contact. I've been a big fan of them. And it's one that you can populate reminders. It sets up drip email campaigns as well as letter campaigns, whatever type you like. But it's one spot where if you know you have something important, it's probably written in my day planner, but it's also in my exact contact. So that morning, when it's the first thing that I turn on, I can see what are my tasks for the day. Who should I be calling? What is going on? And saying that. One thing that I'm guilty for, and I just think about it, I played in a golf tournament on Monday, and oddly enough, I carry my laptop everywhere I go. I obviously have a smartphone, I love it, but I don't like to work on it. And I'm not one guy that has my laptop no matter where I go. It's very close to me. So I have all files, everything is uploaded onto that, and I can work remotely anywhere at any time, which I find is very important.
Very good. So thank you. I know yesterday you showed us you have how many whiteboards in the corner there?
Yes, it's again, I like to write everything. I have closings, I have what's conditional, I have what's listed, I have a list of clients that I'm working with and who I should be watching, kind of my hot list is written. So it's right in front of me. One thing to note and mention, if you see the files, I think desk is covered in files as well, is it can become overwhelming. And I do find that at least once a month, I almost purge. So I go through and make sure and to focus. Again, let's take that funnel of all that information and what should we be focusing on. And a lot of it just kind of gets pushed aside or thrown in the garbage because it's a lost cause. And let's make sure that we focus on the task at hand and what clients are more important that need your time and focus.
Definitely. So I see some more questions. I'm gonna have them talk about one more thing. Then we're gonna take some questions and then we'll do a couple of final rounds. So thank you so much, everyone, for your participation. So we're gonna start with you, Steve Miller. What particular things do you outsource and why? And if you could share a little bit about that and even some approximation, if you're willing to share what that takes out of your budget. So Steve Miller, we'll start with you.
Okay. Well, certainly photography on certain, or I'd say probably half of my listings will hire a professional, mostly due to the quality of his work and the time it would take me to achieve that same quality of work. We had been outsourcing our social media, need to get back to that again. And I used a company for a while, but I felt like it was becoming repetitive in their content, so stepped away for a short time. Amount of budget that it takes, it's really very minimal for those two things. I don't know that I could really put a number on that, but I think it's very, very well worth it. We present, obviously, our listings are mostly presented on the internet, and how it's presented with photography is so important. So that's improved greatly in the last number of years, but so we're trying to stay current with that with good professional photography. So
awesome. Have you done anything with drones?
Our photographer does have a drone, and yes, certain properties, it works beautifully. Absolutely. Love it. As well as the Matterport tours. We've done several of those over the last couple years, with great success as well.
Okay, sounds good. And typically, what does that take of your percentage-wise of your yearly budget for marketing?
Wow, probably less than 10%.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you do the photography on every listing, correct?
About half the professional photography, about half of my listings.
Okay. Sometimes they just sell so fast, right?
Well, they sell so fast, and it depends, frankly, depends on the price range. We'll do our own, we have a great camera. So it depends on the price range, whether it's beneficial to invest that extra time and extra cost. So.
Okay, thank you. Steve Flemming, what do you outsource?
The photography, so I always have since day one. I found it didn't present itself well if it wasn't shot by a professional, in my opinion. And that's always led to now a full virtual tour. Matterport is another program that I do. The other time-consuming part that I always found is measuring a house. to go around and spend the time to measure a house when my photographer can do professional floor plans that have the measurements and everything else. So I outsource all of that, and it just frees up my time where I can go, I can evaluate a house, set up and schedule everything and have it ready for me for the listing. And when we go to market. Now, I'm fortunate with our average price is obviously a lot higher than Miller's, and it isn't cheap. So it's, we're probably in $800 to $1,000 per house, and it gets put on every house. Now they average out. Again, if you've got $1 million listing, it's not a huge portion of the marketing budget. Now it eats in a little bit more if you're in a $400,000 house, but it does average out quite nice at the end of the year. The other thing I found is at the early part of my career, I was trudging through the snow and putting up for sale signs and those type of things. The cost to source that out and have someone make a phone call, and next thing you know, your sign's out on somebody's front lawn, that's been worthwhile as well. So just the little things that, yes, they add up, but it also frees up your time to spend more in front of actual buyer and sellers.
Sounds good. So I've seen more than one person has asked on both the Q&A and the chat. They want to know about your lead generation and prospecting. Obviously, how much time you're spending on it, but more importantly, what is your methods for prospecting and lead gen, and where are you getting leads from? So Steve Miller, we'll start with you. Prospecting and lead gen.
So after being in a small community and after 30 years of being in the business, obviously most of my contacts are repeat or referral. I'd say that's probably 90% of my business, just build over time in a small community. Pull some leads from the website, certainly. We do a calendar every year. We do some mailings throughout the year, but 90% of my business is repeat and referral. So that's a rather simple answer, but that's where we're at in our career.
And also, could you share what, there's questions about your production level. Steve, you're very humble, but you have some incredible accolades at RE/MAX. So would you mind sharing your club level and what your production ranges are?
Sure. So last year we were Chairman's Club. This year we're right at 21 million in sales with 95 transactions. I think last year we were 121 transaction sides and 24 million. So feel blessed in a small market. It's been great.
Congratulations, that's incredible. So thank you for all you do. All right, Steve Flemming, let's talk a little bit about your lead generation and prospecting.
Yeah, so, sorry. The prospecting, again, a lot of it after 13 years, it's been community recognition with regards to being out in front of the community and making sure that everybody is aware of what I do and that I live in the community. Referrals and repeat have been a big part of that. One thing that I do consistently is a monthly newsletter. It's a 4-page folder. It goes out once a month consistently, and it has to just over 6,000 homes, and it's just mass marketed. But it's what I find works is that it's not real estate based. There's the odd real estate question. The rest of it is fun. There's a Sudoku game. There's facts off the internet. There's a comic, and it's not so much, it's hard to tell whether or not that makes money, but at least once a year, I know that I sold at least one house from it, which pretty much pays for it for the year. But I continue to do it. I've had kids run up to me on the street and say, "You're Steve Flemming, you're Steve," and we read your stuff all the time. I had one gentleman when I pulled in a Christmas parade, I pulled around the corner, and a guy yelled out, he's like, "Steve Flemming, I love your newsletter." And it was just one of those, you know what, I got to keep doing it, right? It's whether it makes money or not, there's somebody that loves it. So that's been a big thing. The annual in around New Year's is when I do send either a memo board or a calendar that's magnetic. And again, everybody sees it. It's stuck in their fridge. If I go into, I do showings on other houses or whatnot, you'll see it. You know, I look great with a little dunce cap and horns drawn on me. See it numerous times. So That's always interesting and funny to see.
Oh, that's funny. I like it. So great stories. Yeah, you're absolutely right. If you can pay for it and then some, it's worth the effort. And
Yeah.
obviously in prospecting, some things are short-term payoffs, some are long-term. And Steve Miller and both Steves have actually spent just time over the years just getting their names out there. And that right there is prospecting. So that's great.
That,
Um,
that's a that's a big point to make out. It's consistency is what I feel, and there isn't a quick buck in this business. It's going to take time. If you plan a marketing pitch, you need to stick with it. Don't put out a postcard or a newsletter or anything for 2 months and think, oh, I'm going to sell 4 houses. Put it out for 12 months, 24 months. At the end of 24 months, you will start to sell houses from it. But you need to be consistent. You can't give up on it. Is stick with it and do it. Be in front of people constantly.
Sounds good. So we are getting some questions about your newsletter. Would you be willing to share a copy of one of your newsletters to me, and then I can send it out to everyone after this?
100%. Yep. I just finished doing, I was running a little bit late this month, but October's was just finished. So
Okay, please forward it to me and I'll send it out to everyone. That'd be great. Thank you. Sheila asked that question. So here's a really interesting question that I think we all have to be very mindful of, and that's online privacy. And there's a question from David that says, what would you keep in a paper file that shouldn't be scanned or kept in a digital file? So do you have any advice on that, or do you have your own approach to that? Well, and I heard a term recently called a digital legacy. Like you leave a digital legacy, so that means, it could be good or bad. Your privacy, I think we all feel, if you've ever Googled anything, your privacy has already gone out the window. But let's talk a little bit about that. So, Steve Miller, what has been your experience, and what's your approach to privacy in digital files?
Sure. So in regards to like cloud storage, for example, I think we need to be sensitive. We obviously will get payoff information from clients with social security numbers attached. And so those things we do try to destroy and not have available in either paper or digital after we're completed with our tasks there. So that's the most sensitive thing I think we would have that we try to protect. So.
Okay, sure. Steve Flemming?
The one thing that we have here in Canada, I'm not sure if you have it down south, is called FinTrack, where we need to know the identification of everybody that's selling or who we're working with. And typically it's your driver's license. And I'm very good that rather than filling out, as I said, I don't like paperwork. I'll take a photo of their actual driver's license, but that information just gets put into our actual documents called FinTrack, and I delete the photos that I have. There's no need for me to keep a photo, but really all that same information it needs to be kept for auditing purposes. Our brokerage has it. Again, heaven forbid anything happened with the office information and we needed to come back to it. I'm almost like a backup source for that. So I do keep a filing cabinet of all these files, but they are secured at the office, locked up, and definitely I treat it with the respect that it needs to have and not shared with anyone, but it is kept.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the questions, everyone. Please feel free to ask a couple more. So I'm noticing that there's a couple of questions about some specific things with referrals. For both of you, do either of you have some type of a referral program or incentive program or loyalty club where you have your clients, past clients, refer you business? And within compliance, Steve, I know we have RESPA here. Steve Flemming, I'm not sure what the rules are in your local board, but we'll start with you, Steve Miller. Do you have, what do you do for past clients and referrals?
Certainly a sensitive thing to reward them, with the compliance we have. I'm always jealous of, other industries, car dealerships or whoever can freely give money to anyone for referrals, but we're limited to that. So really, no, I don't. I just have great friends and past clients that have learned to trust us over time, and that's the extent of our reward. occasionally, maybe take someone out to dinner or, a gift card, but not as a general rule, no. So.
Okay, and that's good because, like you said, you have some very strict rules to follow. Steve Flemming, how about you?
We're the same. We do have rules as well. And no, I don't have anything put in place, but it's over the years. Again, I like to think that my past clients are comfortable and do put their trust in me, and that's why they're referring us. And that's what I kind of go with. Similar to Miller, I'm the first person if I see at a restaurant to pick up your tab, or but I'll do that for anyone that kind of is, it's just, again, getting your name out there and pick up their drink or take them for a round of golf, whatever it might be, is me just being a social guy.
Yep, sounds good. And thank you notes go a long way for sure. And sometimes
Yeah.
it's just a quick text message, right? Thanks for the referral for sure. All right, let me just scan the questions one more time and then we'll wrap this up. Sheila wants to know who you're using for signpost installations and are they reliable? Steve Flemming.
I use Don from On the Move, I think his company is.
Your sound cut out a little bit, Steve. Could you repeat that?
I use a gentleman by the name of Don. His company, I believe, is On the Move Signs. It's out of the Barrie area, and he's extremely reliable. I send him an email, and I know the sign's going up in my area typically. He's in my area on Thursdays, so I just schedule it, and it's a very simple communication back and forth. And he's been very good to work with. I've been with him now a number of years, and shoot me a message. I'd be happy to share his contact information.
Okay, and I believe this question is for you because it's Kijiji and we don't have that in the US. So Faisal, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Do you use Kijiji for advertising, Steve Flemming?
I'm shocked that you guys don't have Kijiji in the States. It's very similar to Craigslist is
okay.
what I would compare it to. No, I don't. I believe some stuff gets automatically transposed over there, but no, I have not listed anything on Kijiji for quite some time. I was doing it for a while, and I find that my responses are more of a time suck than what it's worth. It's the amount of clients that are on there. They're looking for, a used bicycle, and they come across a nice house, and they start sending you emails whether or not it's the right house for them, and they're not even in the market.
For sure, yes. So as Steve Miller knows, Craigslist has had plenty of its own controversy, and I think when it first came out, it might have been more widely accepted, but it's speaking of privacy and scary things, there's been some unfortunate incidents on Craigslist, right, Steve?
Yes, exactly.
All right, so I do see a couple of you have raised your hand on webinar format. If you wouldn't mind typing your questions in the Q&A box or on the chat box, so we will not be having anyone else speak. I'm sorry. We've got too many people on here. There's hundreds of you, but we want to hear from you. So please type in your question on the Q&A box or the chat box for sure. So Raul's asking, do you prospect on the phone? So when's the last time you both did any kind of cold calling? And I know I think we might have talked about this yesterday for sure about prospecting. So Steve Miller, we'll start with you.
I love rejection, just like anyone. So it's been a while since I would have prospected on the phone. I guess I'd probably think, 7, 8, 9 years ago, I may have taken time to call by owners or expired listings and prospected in that way. Of course, it's a sensitive issue now with the no-call list and the cross-reference to make sure you're not infringing on anybody's privacy in that way. But it's been a while since I prospected on the phone.
For sure. Steve Flemming, how about you?
No, I have never prospected on the phone. I've always felt that, again, I'm a personable person. I need to be in front of you and gain your trust and have that conversation. That being said, about 10 years ago, I tried door knocking, and it just is not for me. I'm not a huge fan of it. Again, I'd rather be at social events and meeting people through that manner and letting them kind of come to me and ask that question and start the conversation, rather than me going, I'm more of a soft sale than being that aggressor that's knocking on the door or making a phone call. It's worked for me.
We'll take one more question from the group, and then we'll wrap up with a final thoughts from our Steve panel. So Anna's asking, during COVID, what kinds of prospecting do you recommend? Both of you mentioned, or I think Steve Flemming mentioned door knocking, but do you think door knocking is a good idea, or what about just dropping off door hangers? So Steve Miller, what are your thoughts on that?
I think I would stay away from door knocking, certainly during this COVID crisis, would seem like it would maybe scare some people to answer the door. But I'm a firm believer in when it comes to farming or prospecting, I'm a firm believer in starting with your circle of influence and building from there. You already have people that trust you, know you, either as friends or past clients. So during this COVID shutdown, I would, we talk about phone calls. I would, call, touch base with past clients. I would, again, look at mailers to stay in front of them repetitively, like Flemming mentioned, not just once or twice, but continue to stay in front of them. But that would be my focus, I think, on the current circle of influence I have. And maybe out of that circle of influence, pick the power players that certainly have referred in the past or have many more contacts and focus on them during that time.
Thank you. Steve Flemming, thoughts on prospecting during COVID, door knocking, anything else?
Yeah, my thought on COVID is it's a touchy subject. Everybody thinks of it a little bit differently as to whether they should be out, 100% doing business or whether they should be scaling back. Obviously, at the beginning, I scaled right back. It's I mentioned it, the only time in the 13 years that I've been in this business that I did not mail out a newsletter was in the first 2 months, April and May. And I switched that into a virtual newsletter that I did and posted it everywhere and kind of did postal code, Google ads and everything else. And I got a good response from that. And I kind of worded it in terms of for everyone's safety, who might not want to be going to the mailbox. And I got a good response from it. And I picked up from that yes, a lot of people don't want you coming to their door. They don't want to be out, and at the time, as busy as we are right now, with regards to the market, there's a lot of people that really look at that negatively. And I don't want that to be my legacy going forward in the next couple of years, as that's the guy that'll sell anything at any time. It was being respectful to everyone and setting boundaries. So my marketing right now, I've gone back to mailing. That's picked back up, but no, definitely doing in-person door knocking or any of that type of thing, I wouldn't suggest it. It's not something I would do.
So those of us in the U.S., we can, what will happen with the big election coming up, we're not going to have any politicians knocking on our doors either. So like typically happens this time of year. Anyway, that's a great question though, and really good advice. All right, let's bring this home. Thanks for staying on with us, everyone. We ran a little bit over the hour. Great things from both Steves. This has been a really fun session. So thankful. So Steve Miller, we'll start with you. Final thoughts to all of your peers watching, whether it's now or later on, they'll watch the recording, on how to stay on task, how to be productive, and how to not get distracted by those energy draining activities.
Right. Well, I think, being asked to be part of this platform caused me to pause and think, what do we do, in our systems? And so I think that's healthy for everyone to take time to reflect on your current systems, carve out some time to really, reflect on what you're currently doing and how can you improve, maybe ask a peer or even a spouse on what they see from the outside looking in, or even someone from outside the business to talk about your current structure and what they see. Sometimes that's helpful in different aspects, but so take time to reflect, surround yourself with the right people. Definitely pick the right people on your team, the right people to communicate with, and you want to be around winners to make the system work. But organization, top priority, having things in place, having systems, organization is so important in our business. And then I guess, yeah, creating a system with all that in mind. So hope that helps.
Thank you so much. Steve Flemming, final words of advice.
Miller touched base on a lot of it. I really liked what you said about surrounding yourself with smart people. And I find that very beneficial. Obviously, everybody that's listening today is focusing on that. And again, trying to pick a little piece out of what everybody's got to offer. And whether it works for you or not, it's what I'm doing might not work for you, but what Miller's doing might work for you. So kind of take a little something from each other. Having a clean workspace where you can be productive. Get out of the area that is causing that little bit of cloudiness that kind of is the distraction. And having those schedules and setting things up and being consistent. The biggest thing is being consistent. If you're going to set up a schedule, and if it's Tuesday mornings at 10 o'clock where you watch a webinar, be consistent, do that, and follow through with it, is what I would suggest. And do it over the time and it'll pay back for you.
Wonderful advice from two amazing superstars in the RE/MAX network. Thank you, Steve Flemming. Thank you, Steve Miller. Thank you, all of you. Please join us again next week. Same place, same time. We're going to talk the more you learn, the more you earn. So how important learning is for your career. And I want to thank everyone again. So have a great rest of your day. Signing off. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.